Welcome to another bonus edition of Upon Further Review.
Upon further review,
And in this edition, we'll be talking about the Week 7 matchup between the Atlanta Falcons and the Baltimore Ravens. And you can catch this one on October 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and that'll be on your local Fox affiliates. So the Falcons are going to Baltimore. The Falcons are 2-4 on the year, and the Ravens are 4-2. The Falcons started off by beating New Orleans in Week 1 in overtime by a field goal. Then they went to Cincinnati and they lost by 14 points. Then they hosted Tampa Bay on Thursday Night Football in that game where Devin Hester made NFL history by passing Deion Sanders for the all-time special teams touchdown leader. But then, since then, they lost 3 straight games. As they went to Minnesota and lost, then they went to New York and lost, and then they hosted Chicago and lost. And now they have to go to Baltimore. And the Ravens started out with a loss against the Bengals in Week 1 in Baltimore. But then they beat the Steelers in Baltimore. And then they went to Cleveland and beat the Browns just barely. But then they hosted the Panthers and they beat up on them pretty bad. Then they went to Indianapolis and they lost by a touchdown to the Colts. But then they went to Tampa and just demolished the Buccaneers. And now they host the Falcons. Kind of interesting when you actually look at and see that they both beat up on the Bucs. But I don't know what bearing that really necessarily has for this game right here. Let's look inside the numbers between these two teams. And when we look at passing offensive yards, the Falcons are number 3 in the NFL in passing yards per game. The Ravens are 12th. When it comes to passing defense, the Falcons are 29th and the Ravens are 27th. So the Falcons, they can put it up, in the air and they can get some yards. Matt Ryan's having a really good season. He's only 150 yards shy of 2,000. He's already got 1,850 yards passing on the year. But when it comes to defense, though, they are in the bottom 5. They're one of the worst teams at defending against the pass. The Ravens, they've been coming on lately. Joe Flacco's been putting up some pretty big numbers in the last couple weeks. He had 300 against Tampa, and then back in Week 4 against Carolina, he had 327 yards. And then back in Week 1 in the loss, he had 345 yards. But, of course, against Pittsburgh, he didn't even hit 200 yards and barely went over 200 against the Browns. And he struggled a little bit against the Colts. He had 235 passing yards. So it'll be interesting to see which Flacco shows up on Sunday. Is it going to be the Flacco that throws for 300-plus, or is it going to be the guy who struggles a little bit? I think he's starting to hit his stride, and they're getting a really good production out of their running game. But as for the passing, though, you have to kind of give the slight edge to the Falcons in that they are better at passing the ball. Of course, if you look at the stats, Matt Ryan's thrown 4 more interceptions than Flacco. They've both thrown 12 touchdowns, but Matt Ryan has 7 interceptions on the year, and Flacco only has 3. So he's protecting the ball really well there, Flacco. So, you kind of give the slight edge to the Falcons, but it's kind of almost a push, really. Even though, statistically speaking, the Falcons do put up more yards, but the Ravens, they're not at any loss for a passing game whatsoever. They can air it out if they have to. And against the Falcons' defense, the Ravens should have no problem airing it out. Of course, the Ravens do tend to let up a lot of yards too, so we should see some pretty big numbers through the air. So, I guess you give the slight edge to the Falcons, but it's almost a push, really. It's kind of, the Ravens are right there with their passing attack too. With the Falcons, though, with those receivers, they've got a little bit more talent at the receiver position. But, you got to give it to Flacco, though, in that he is protecting the ball better than Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's thrown twice as many interceptions. Now, let's look at the running game. And when it comes to yards per game, the Falcons are 21st in the NFL in rushing, and the Ravens are 9th. And when it comes to running defense, the Falcons are 28th and the Falcons are 7th. So a clear advantage for the Ravens when it comes to their running game, without a doubt. They've been getting some really good production, as I was saying. Justin Forsett's already got 408 yards on the season and 3 touchdowns. Lorenzo Taliaferro has 196 yards, and Bernard Pierce has 175 yards. All combined, the Ravens have rushed for 797 yards on the season so far. So they got 3 guys running the ball, and they are doing a really good job in Ray Rice's absence. Forsett especially, he's getting the bulk of the carries, and he's averaging 6.4 yards per carry. Of course, that's opening things up for that passing game as well. So the Ravens definitely have the advantage on the ground, and they're good at stopping the run as well. The Falcons really don't have much of a running game to speak of. They got Steven Jackson, but he's kind of struggling so far in the year. He does have 263 yards so far, but he's only averaging 3.8 per carry. Antone Smith is averaging 9.7, but he's only got 13 touches. So, they got to get him the ball more somehow, some way. Of course, he also catches the ball out of the backfield as well. Smith, that is, he has 10 receptions for 220 yards. So he is, being productive, but their running game is pretty abysmal, and they don't really stop the run either. So the Ravens should be able to run all over the Falcons, and that should actually help them with their passing game as well, which is pretty potent. And we look at points scored for these two teams. Both of these teams are tied for 4th when it comes to points scored per game. So they both put up plenty of points. But then when we look at their defense, though, the Falcons are 29th in points allowed, and the Ravens are 3rd. So clear advantage there for the Ravens. Their defense is keeping teams out of the end zone, forcing them to settle for field goals, whereas the Falcons cannot keep anyone out of the end zone. And so when we look into these numbers and we see it looks like the Ravens should be able to win this one. They should be able to win it by double digits. Maybe the Falcons make it interesting with their proficiency for scoring. They can put up those points, but against the Ravens, they're going to really be challenged. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see it look more like it did last week against the Bears, the way the Bears shut them down and held them to only 13 points. Even the week before that, New York held them to 20, and Minnesota had held them to 28. And if you notice, that's kind of a slide. It just keeps going down. They keep scoring less and less. Of course, they only scored 10 points in week 2 against the Bengals, and that's actually a pretty good indicator for what's going to happen in this game. Is they went to Cincinnati and they got beat up on pretty bad, and that's what's probably going to happen in Baltimore. Is Baltimore has a similar type of team as the Bengals when it comes to their defense and their offense. Actually, the Baltimore Ravens have better numbers on defense, especially their rushing defense, and when it comes to points allowed. And like I said, they're putting up the points. They're not having any problem scoring. They put up 48 last week. They did get held to 13 against the Colts, and so that's something right there. The Falcons got to look at that and see if they can try to do something similar, but they do not have the personnel that the Colts have. They don't have that defense that the Colts have, as the Colts defense has been coming on. So the Falcons, I don't think they're going to really be that proficient against the Ravens. We see, what the Ravens did against Carolina. They should be putting up similar numbers like that against the Falcons. And really, the Falcons' defense isn't as good as the Panthers, even though the Panthers have been struggling this year. But I really see the Ravens having no problem in this game in terms of, putting points on the board. Their offense should be hitting on all cylinders. Flacco should have another big game. I think Steve Smith is going to have a big game. I think they should have no problem running the ball against the Falcons either. They really should just be moving up and down the field, putting up plenty of points. Even Justin Tucker should get his share of attempts from field goals as well, as I don't see the Ravens really punting too often in this game. Whereas the Falcons, the only chance that they really have in this game to win is they have to protect the ball. They cannot turn it over, and they've got to get some kind of production out of their running game. But I really don't see that happening. More likely, they're just going to have to, air it out and try to get into, a shootout with the Ravens. That's the type of game maybe the Falcons can win, but even still, I see the Ravens winning that type of game as well. So either which way you cut it, I think the Ravens are going to win this game, and I would expect them to win by double digits. But maybe if the Falcons can protect the ball, they make it close. But probably it's Ravens win easy. So that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Very interested to hear your opinions and read them. So leave a comment down there. And if you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit the like button to let us know that you enjoyed the show. How else would we know? And if you like this content, make sure to subscribe for more of it, because we do Upon Further Reviews. That's what you're listening to right now. We do this for each and every single game, each and every single week in the NFL season. We also do recaps for each and every single game. And we're also bringing you a weekly show, The Wedge, where we do our quick picks, our fantasy picks, a weekly rewind, and the Thursday night Upon Further Review. We try to get that up between Tuesday, no later than Thursday, usually on Wednesday each week. We also are covering the MLB playoffs, so keep an eye out for that. It's moving to the World Series as it's come down to San Francisco and Kansas City, the Giants and the Royals, and we're covering that as well, so keep an eye out for that. We also do our best to cover as much college football as we can. A little bit tough with everything going on, especially with the World Series, to get a lot of coverage of that right at the moment, but we will continue to cover college football, and we're definitely going to be covering the college football playoffs this year. So keep an eye out for all of that stuff, and we greatly appreciate you listening. Thank you very much. Hope you're having a good day, and have a great weekend, and enjoy all of the sports.